Those words still echo in my head as if they were spoken yesterday. In the opulent hall of the St. James Hotel in New York, under glittering chandeliers and the sophisticated chatter of guests, I, Emily Carter, 34, was cast out by my own father like a stranger. It wasn't just a dismissal. It was a cold verdict that shattered every illusion I'd clung to for 3 decades about what family meant. I'd driven 4 hours from Boston to New York, carrying a fragile hope that this time things would be different. That after years of being overlooked, standing on the sidelines of conversations, and silently sacrificing without recognition, they'd finally open their hearts. I'd prepared carefully, a simple but elegant navy dress, my hair softly curled, and glossy black heels I'd bought with my own savings. I wanted to look polished, not to show off but to prove I deserved a seat at the Carter family's long table. But as I approached the entrance, I heard my father, Robert Carter, his voice booming with anger. He didn't bother to whisper. Instead, he spoke loudly enough for the entire hall to hear. "Sorry, you're not invited. Get this beggar out." I froze. For a moment, I thought he was joking. Maybe his usual biting humor, followed by a laugh and a hug. But when I met his eyes, I saw only cold contempt. My mother, Helen, stood beside him. She turned away, pretending to adjust her pearl necklace. Her gaze avoided mine, as if my presence was a stain she couldn't face. My sister, Melissa, couldn't suppress a smirk, her red lips curling in mockery. In that moment, I felt like the 12-year-old girl again, standing in the schoolyard with a speech contest award, uncelebrated by anyone at home except myself. 2 security guards approached. One placed a hand on my shoulder, polite but firm. "Ma'am, please come with us." I looked around. Some guests whispered, their wine glasses glinting. I felt their eyes, curious, pitying, a few amused. Time seemed to stop, leaving only the pounding of my heart. A wave of emotions surged. Humiliation, hurt, and rage. I wanted to scream, to demand of my parents, why? What have I done all these years to be treated like this? But something held me back, maybe the last shred of pride, or the exhaustion of years spent chasing their approval. I took a deep breath, straightened my dress, and held my head high. No tears, no begging, no curses, just heavy footsteps echoing on the marble floor, reverberating through the vast hall. I walked away, past rows of strangers' eyes, an outsider in my own family. As the revolving door closed behind me, November's cold wind bit my skin. I stood there trembling, fighting not to collapse. New York's streets buzzed. Yellow taxis honked. Crowds rushed by. To the world, it was an ordinary night. To me, it was the night everything changed. I thought back to the long journey, a childhood compared to my sister, my achievements dismissed as luck, adulthood spent shouldering family debts, funding vacations and parties they bragged about. I'd endured, believing one day love and recognition would come. But tonight, "Get this beggar out," tore through my final illusions. As I descended the hotel steps, laughter and clinking glasses spilled from inside. They were toasting, without missing me. I'd spent my life dreaming of sitting at that table, joining the family cheer. Now I realized that table was never meant for me. I opened my phone, staring at the photo I'd taken that morning, a forced smile in the mirror, eyes hiding anxiety. I gave a bitter laugh. I'd been fooling myself too long. A strong gust blew, tossing my hair. I pulled my coat tight and hurried down the street. My heels clicked on the sidewalk like a drumbeat signaling. It was time to choose. I could keep being the obedient daughter who endured, or I could change. That night, outside the St. James Hotel, I knew my patience had reached its limit. I didn't know what I'd do next, but one thing was certain: I'd never let anyone belittle me again. To those reading my story, maybe you've felt the sting of loved ones turning their backs or undervaluing your worth. I want to tell you, walking away silently isn't weakness. It's often the first step to reclaiming your strength. If you've been overlooked, share your story in the comments. By speaking up, we free ourselves and inspire others facing the same pain. On the drive back from New York to Boston, Under the endless glow of highway lights, I did something unthinkable. My hands shook as I opened the banking app, but each action was strangely resolute, as if my pain had turned into guiding energy. Notifications flashed, each withdrawal from the family account chilling yet exhilarating. $7,200 for the St. James Banquet, canceled. $12,000 for Melissa and Greg's honeymoon tickets, canceled. $4,800 for Mom's spa weekend with friends, canceled. $52,000 for the beach condo Dad called our legacy, frozen. Nearly $76,000 total, a sum large enough to shake the facade of the Carter family's glory. When the final confirmation appeared, I leaned back, heart racing. All my life, I'd endured, stood in the shadows. Tonight, I'd rip the curtain off the stage of those who thought I was just an invisible spectator. The next morning, as I sipped my first coffee in my small Boston apartment, urgent knocks rattled the door. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who it was. I opened the door, and there stood Greg, Melissa's husband. His shirt was wrinkled, hair disheveled, face red with fury. He clutched his phone, its screen flashing with frantic messages. "Emily, fix this now," he snapped, skipping pleasantries. "The hotel canceled our room. The restaurant stopped service. Our honeymoon flights were voided at check-in. Do you know how humiliated we are?" I leaned against the doorframe, calmly watching him fume. Funny, weren't those expenses under my name? If anyone checked, they'd see who really funded them. Greg blinked, as if I'd spoken an alien language. "You mean all of it was from you?" I nodded, then turned, placing a thick file on the table. White paper, black ink, clear contracts. Every clause stating Emily Carter, LLC as the sole sponsor, with cancellation rights. I flipped through pages for him. Banquet contract, flight tickets, beach condo deeds. All bore my signature. Greg stared, eyes wide. "You did this because they kicked you out of the party? Emily, you're punishing the whole family." I raised an eyebrow, voice even. "Punishing? No, Greg. I'm protecting my investments. If they saw me as a bank, I'll act like one. And what's a bank's rule? Nobody spits in the face of the lender." He froze, face flushing. "They're your parents, your sister, you can't—" I cut him off. "They called me a beggar. You think I owe them loyalty?" Greg went silent, gripping his phone like he wanted to crush it. In my eyes, he wasn't my sister's successful husband anymore, just a man panicking as his ladder of prestige crumbled. Finally, he muttered, "We'll take this to court. Lawyers will handle it." I smiled faintly. "Go ahead, but remember, the law trusts paper trails, and I have them all." He stormed off, his heavy steps echoing down the hall. I closed the door, leaning against it. My heart no longer trembled. For the first time in years, I felt in control. That evening, my phone exploded with missed calls and texts. Mom wrote, "We didn't mean it. It was just emotions. Let this go, Emily." Melissa accused, "You've humiliated the family. Happy now?" Dad said nothing. Just sent an unpaid banquet invoice with, "Handle it." I stared at the screen, laughing aloud. For years, they'd treated me as a shadow servant, a walking wallet. Now, with the wallet closed, they were scared. I opened my laptop, the file on the table. The golden lamplight hit the thick pages, and I felt a strange mix of pain and freedom. Those funds were proof of the love I'd foolishly given, hoping for recognition. Now, they were the key to reclaiming my voice. I whispered, like a vow. "If they made me a bank, I'm done giving handouts. I'll charge interest. And the first interest is the truth." I began drafting a new file, labeled in red, Inheritance Audit, Phase 2. I didn't know how far this would go, but one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. What do you think? If this story grips you, comment Y. If it's not dramatic enough, comment N. I never imagined my father's silence could be more terrifying than any insult. After I canceled the payments, my phone rang non-stop. Mom sobbed, "Emily, we didn't mean it. You know your father's temper. Give us another chance." Melissa screamed, "You've shamed the family. Who raised you, gave you a place? You're ungrateful." Dad stayed silent. No apology, no explanation, just the banquet invoice with, "Handle it." I read his message repeatedly, each word a blade in my heart. To him, I wasn't a daughter, just a walking bank account. That moment, I knew I had to do something, uncover every financial secret they'd hidden. I went to Reed, my trusted lawyer. His office, in a red brick building near downtown Boston, smelled of old wood, warmed by golden light. As I entered, Reed looked at me, half curious, half concerned. "Emily," he said, "I know you've been through a lot, but are you sure you want to go all the way? Once we open this, there's no turning back." I nodded, voice firm. "I've been silent too long. It's time for the truth." Reed nodded, signaling his assistant to bring the audit files. On the table, dozens of bank statements, receipts, and contracts spread out, each number a piece of a puzzle I'd never been allowed to see. The first discovery stunned me. The beach condo my parents bragged about as our family legacy was mine. Every deed, payment, and maintenance fee was under Emily Carter LLC. I laughed, but it was choked with bitterness. They'd used my assets to polish their family image while calling me a beggar. "There's more," Reed said, sliding another stack toward me. I flipped through, eyes widening. $18,700 withdrawn from the trust the week I graduated college, labeled emergency home repairs. Actually, it was Melissa's new kitchen. $9,000 marked as supplemental tuition, funneled to a travel agency, Mom's concert tickets and spa trip. $34,000 for asset preservation, used to restore Dad's vintage car he flaunted around town. I dropped the papers, hands shaking with rage. For years, I'd believed the trust was used legally. Instead, it was their personal ATM, while I slaved to refill it. Reed watched silently, his eyes sharp. "Emily, these actions could constitute trust fund abuse in court. How far do you want to go?" I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Memories flashed. Melissa's new designer bags, Mom's Florida vacations, Dad's gleaming car, all built on my sweat, repaid with contempt. The pain turned into fierce anger, but beneath it, clarity. I was done being the silent victim. "We go all the way," I said, voice hoarse but resolute. "Not for the money, but for the truth. They called me a beggar while I funded their lives. I want the world to see the real Carter family." Reed gave a cold, supportive smile. "I'll prepare, but brace yourself, Emily. This fight won't just be financial. It'll be about honor, family, everything you thought you had." I took a deep breath, my heart racing, but not with fear, with relief. I'd finally shed the invisible shackles weighing me down for years. That night, back in my apartment, I sat by the window, Boston's lights aglow. My phone buzzed with missed calls, but I ignored them. I opened my notebook, writing in bold, "No more silence." I knew the road ahead would be stormy. My parents would deny, Melissa would attack, relatives might turn away. But I also knew, if I didn't do this, I'd stay buried under the Carter family shadow, a shadow I never chose. As I set down the pen, a thought struck. When the truth comes to light, will they dare meet my eyes? Or will they keep turning away, pretending I never existed? I'd find out soon enough. If you want to hear more stories like mine, or relate to my struggles, check out my previous videos on this channel. They say when family goes to court, no one wins. But for me, the real loss was staying silent, letting them treat me as invisible. Before the New York trial, the air thickened with veiled jabs. Melissa posted a sunset photo on social media with a lengthy caption. "Some only remember family when money's involved. Glad I know who really matters in my life." Dozens of comments praised her, sharing it, painting me as the greedy, betraying sister. Mom called almost daily, voice trembling. "Emily, you're tearing our family's image apart. What will people at church, in the neighborhood say? Your father won't be able to hold his head up." I listened silently, realizing she never asked how I felt. To her, what people think always mattered more than what my daughter endured. Melissa's final text before the trial. "If you go through with this, I'll never forgive you." My finger hovered over the screen, tempted to reply. But I deleted it, letting the screen go dark. Her forgiveness had no value. She'd never even apologized. On the trial morning, I wore a simple navy suit, hair neatly tied. In the mirror, I saw a different Emily, not the outcast from the St. James Hall, but a woman ready to face her family in the light of justice. The New York courthouse loomed, its gray columns cold. My heart pounded as I entered, but my steps were steady. Reed walked beside me, carrying a briefcase of evidence. He whispered, "Let the truth speak." The courtroom was vast, fluorescent lights glaring. My family sat opposite, Dad's face icy, Mom clutching a handkerchief, eyes red, Melissa scrolling her phone but smirking. I sat across the cold divide, a space I never imagined facing. When the judge entered, we stood. She was a middle-aged woman, her gaze sharp enough to cut through lies. Reed began, projecting evidence. Banquet contracts, flight tickets, spa bills, beach condo deeds, all under my name, my signature. Then the audit, $18,700 for home repairs that became Melissa's kitchen, $9,000 tuition for Mom's concert, $34,000 asset preservation for Dad's car. Each number, each line was a dagger to my family illusion. But I didn't look away. I stared straight, letting them see I wasn't afraid. My family fought back. Dad stood, voice steely. "This is a misunderstanding. We had an internal agreement. Emily was just helping, and the paperwork was formality." Melissa chimed in, eyes fake teary. "My sister's always been overly sensitive. We never meant to exploit her. This is a family matter, not for court." Mom sobbed, "Your Honor, we just wanted to keep our home together. She's blowing this out of proportion. People will think we're cruel." The judge listened silently, then asked slowly, "Do you have documents proving this internal agreement?" They went silent. Not a single paper. Her piercing gaze swept over them. "Family isn't an excuse for wrongdoing. This is a legal violation." I sat, breathing deeply. Emotions surged. Pain, relief. For years, they'd convinced me I was too sensitive, too dramatic. Now the truth was in the court record, not just my feelings. The verdict came. All misused funds must be repaid to the trust. The beach condo was confirmed as my legal property. My parents were stripped of future control over family assets. The gavel's echo rang. I sat still, tears falling, not from weakness but relief. For the first time, justice stood with me. Outside the courthouse, New York's wind whipped my hair. Reed placed a hand on my shoulder. "They'll fight back, but today you won the most important battle against yourself." I looked at the bustling streets, feeling something new. I was no longer the invisible giver. But deep down, I knew the fight wasn't over. Justice had spoken, but family wounds lingered, and Dad, silent through the trial, felt like he was hiding something bigger, something that could change everything. I never thought, after the New York trial, Dad would seek me out again. His silence had been a cold wall between us, and I believed it would stay that way. But days later, when my Boston apartment's doorbell rang, I peered through the peephole and saw a familiar figure. The man I'd once revered, feared, and longed to be recognized by. He stood there, no polished suit, no cold stare. Instead, he looked weary, wearing an old cap he used for gardening, scuffed shoes. For a moment, I doubted. Is this Robert Carter who shouted, "Get this beggar out," in the hotel hall? I hesitated, then opened the door. He nodded slightly, voice hoarse. "Emily, can I come in?" The air in my small apartment grew heavy. I set a cup of tea before him, but he didn't drink, just turned the cap in his hands. The room was so quiet, I heard the clock tick. Finally he spoke, each word slow and heavy. "When I was 40, I lost everything. A bad real estate deal. I didn't just lose money, but my honor. Friends mocked me, partners turned away. From that day I swore no one would see me fail again." He looked up, his eyes holding a strange light, not authority, but raw confusion. I clung to appearances at all costs. The lavish parties, the vintage car, the beach condo, all masks. "I knew you were quietly paying, but I let it happen. To the world, the Carters had to shine, and I had to lead. I was selfish. I turned you into a bank to hide my fear of being called a failure." My hands clenched under the table. His words stung memories of working extra jobs, exhausted nights in hospitals, still wiring money on time, all tied to his obsession. "Didn't you think I'd break?" I blurted, voice trembling. Didn't you see how drained I was? He bowed his head, gnarled hands clasped. I saw, but I told myself you were stronger. You'd manage. Really, it was my way of dodging guilt. I went silent. For the first time, Dad admitted weakness to me. The man once towering in a suit now sat small in my old wooden chair, shoulders trembling. He wasn't the invincible father of my childhood, but an aging man consumed by fear. A battle raged inside me. Part of me wanted to scream, to unload years of being ignored, but another part felt pity. For the first time, I saw Dad not as a cruel monster, but a man devoured by fear. Emily, he continued, voice rough. I don't expect instant forgiveness. I just hope you understand I never looked down on you. I was too scared of losing control. I looked up, eyes misty. I couldn't erase the hotel humiliation or the nights I paid their debts alone. But in this moment, I saw something else. Dad had faced the truth. I took a deep breath, speaking slowly. At least today you faced it. That matters. But you need to know this wound won't heal quickly. He nodded, eyes teary. For the first time I saw him cry, not dramatic tears for pity, but a breaking dam at his limit. After he left, the apartment fell silent. I stared at the cold tea, emotions tangled. I didn't forgive, but the rage had softened. A small crack had opened, a path to possible forgiveness. I knew the road ahead was long, but for the first time, I saw Dad as human, not the cold wall I'd crashed against for years. I never imagined, after all the wreckage, I'd stand on a stage, not to beg for family recognition, but to announce something entirely mine. That day, Boston glowed with spring sunshine. The street by the small convention center bloomed with vivid tulips. I wore a simple white dress and a beige blazer. My heart pounded, but not from fear of rejection. This time, it was for launching a new chapter, the Carter Foundation. It wasn't just a fund for young women to stand on their own. It was my answer to those who called me beggar. I no longer used money to prop up others' false glory. I used it to plant real opportunities for those fighting alone. As the ceremony began, I stepped to the podium. Golden light shone, reflecting in the eyes of dozens below, journalists, colleagues, and young women who'd overcome hardship to be here. I took the mic, breathed deeply, and began. Maybe some of you know the Carter family. Yes, I'm Emily Carter, but today I'm not here to talk about a wealthy family, but about daughters left behind. I know that feeling. I sat in the dark, waiting for a hand, but no one came. Then I realized, sometimes we must be our own saving hand. Murmurs rose, nods followed. I continued, voice steady. The Carter Foundation is for young women with no support but big dreams. We'll offer scholarships, career guidance, and most importantly, a community so they know they're not alone. Because I believe a family's true value isn't blood, but love and support. As I finished, applause thundered. In that moment, my eyes swept the seats and stopped. In the back row, unnoticed, sat my father, Robert Carter. He was there in an old shirt, silver hair messy, gnarled hands clapping slowly. No shouts, no contempt, just silence and a different look. My heart tightened. I didn't know when he arrived or why he was there. But when our eyes met, I felt no hate, just a faint, real spark of hope. After the event, I stayed to talk with press and guests. When I looked again, Dad was gone. On his seat was his old cap, the one he'd held when he visited me post-trail. I picked it up, fingers trembling. A strange feeling stirred. Regret, yet relief. He hadn't apologized or promised anything, but his quiet presence spoke louder than any excuse. That night, back in my apartment, I set the cap on a shelf. I opened my laptop, reviewing event photos. Seeing the radiant faces of young women, I smiled. I realized this journey wasn't about family recognition anymore. It was about turning my pain into strength for others. For years, I thought happiness meant a seat at the Carter family table. Now I knew I didn't need that chair. I was building a new table where anyone overlooked could sit. I looked out my window at Boston's twinkling lights, feeling calmer than ever. I hadn't returned to my old home, but I'd found a new one of freedom, forgiveness, and purpose. Deep inside, a small seed sprouted, Hope that one day, when he found the courage, Dad would sit at my table, not as a judge, but as a real father. Looking back, the greatest treasure wasn't a courtroom win or assets on paper. It was daring to stand, to say no to injustice, and to step out of the family shadow to find my true worth. I learned family doesn't always mean love, but that doesn't mean we close our hearts. Instead, at the depths of pain, we discover the power of forgiveness and choosing rebirth from ruins. If my story made you reflect on yourself, your family, or gave you courage to stop staying silent, share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear you. And if this journey feels worth continuing, follow my channel to join me in exploring more raw, meaningful stories. Because in the end, we all deserve to be loved and to live true to our worth.